Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. By virtue of the power vested in me as Chancellor, I hereby constitute this congregation of the University of the Free State for the conferment of master's and doctoral degrees in the faculties of Economic and Management Sciences, Education, Health Sciences, the Humanities, Law, and Theology and Religion. I therefore confer master's and doctoral degrees to all the candidates that the deans of the respective faculties present to this congregation. In addition, I hereby award master's and doctoral degrees to those whose names appear in the program, but who are not present here today.
Please be seated. So it's indeed my pleasure as Rector and Vice-chancellor to welcome you to this particular graduation ceremony of the University of the Free State. Graduation ceremonies is supposed to be a very joyous event. I often use the analogy and say that graduation ceremonies shouldn't be, there's a level of dignity that is associated with these ceremonies, but it shouldn't be church services. So it's a celebration. So if you would like to express your celebration in a certain way, you can. But later on, the program director will indicate how you would actually do that. The joyous event, because it's joyous not only from a perspective of the graduate, but also from the parents' perspective, the family members that are here, the guardians, the friends, and also the staff members. And I'm glad to see so many staff members here to share that celebration with you as graduate. And obviously the supervisors that have spent a lot of time to be able to ensure that you ultimately get your master's or your doctoral degrees this morning. So for many in the audience today, this event also marks the culmination of a great deal of hard work, and in many cases, sacrifices. And those sacrifices could be emotional sacrifice, but also financial sacrifice. And we also should think that those sacrifices is not only yourself that have sacrificed, but probably also your family members or friends. But for the University of the Free State, it's not only focusing on the development of the individual and conferring a degree on the individual. It is about embedding a set of values that will hopefully set the graduates of the University of the Free State apart from other graduates in the system. And those values for me is the value of critical inquiry. It is that critical inquiry that sort of culminates the receptiveness to alternative ideas that it engenders. And specifically today, when we're talking about research and research qualification, that is so true. But it's also about service to others, service to the community that we have to keep in mind, and then embed or illustrate that through the value of social responsiveness. And very importantly, it's the value of integrity. And I think as a society nowadays, not only in South Africa, but across the globe, that value is being challenged quite considerably, the value of integrity. And you have to go out there, whatever profession you stand in, and try to illustrate that you can live out that specific value. So therefore, again, hearty welcome to our special guest of honor, the family members, the friends that are here to support you, and I know that we will share the celebration with you this morning. Welcome again.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Professor Corley Vatoon. I'm the DVC Research. I'd like to say a special word of welcome to the students and candidates here this morning. This is really the highlight of the academic year. I had one maybe better day where we did the 3-minute thesis competition, but I think this is really the best day in the academic calendar. I'd like to give a special word of welcome to the academics, not just the academics flanking the stage, but also the academics sitting between the doctoral students this morning. Thank you for your contribution, and thank you for your hard work. It's really much appreciated. I know the amount of work that goes into completing a PhD, so congratulations to the supervisors. It is a fantastic achievement, and we all celebrate with you this morning. Then I'd like to say welcome to the candidates. We have a few staff members amongst you. We have some previous staff members amongst you. And to those, I especially congratulate you. We're very proud to also see our students or our staff members cross the stage as graduates this morning. The university makes use of official photographers who are present in the hall today. However, areas on campus have been allocated to a number of freelance photographers. These photographs are not accredited by the university, and the university therefore has no control over the quality of those photographs. Those of you who arrived after the pre-ceremony announcements are asked to refer to the bottom of page 2 in your graduation program. Today is a time to celebrate the achievements of each graduate. Hearing the full names of each student is important to everyone. So please can I ask that you limit your cheers and loud exclamations so that we can hear the name of every student crossing the stage this morning. I also ask that you refrain from leaving the hall before the end of the ceremony. I have the pleasure this morning to introduce to you Dr. Max de Prier, who is the guest speaker at our graduation. Dr. Max de Prier is a veteran journalist, author, and analyst of South African political economy. He has an impressive 13 titles on South African history and politics to his name. He is an extraordinary professor in the School of Communication at Northwest University and a fellow in the Center for Leadership Ethics in Africa at the University of Fort Hare. Both the University of the Free State and Stellenbosch University awarded him an honorary doctorate degree in 2016 and 2017. Following a long career in the media, he is currently a columnist for the News24.com and Netwerk24.com. I now call upon Dr. Max de Prier to address us.
Thank you. Good morning and goeiemorgen. Chancellor, Vice-chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, congratulations to all of you. This day is the culmination of years of perseverance and hard work, a day that you and your family will always remember. I honor you for your commitment, and I suspect that for some of you, this must have taken an extraordinary effort due to personal circumstances. I was really getting a bit depressed about the state of our nation lately, but standing here today and looking at you restores my faith and my pride in our nation. To the graduates today, I want to say you are now officially members of our society's intelligentsia. Intelligentsia is a Russian word. It was first used in Russia and Poland in the mid-1800s to describe the educated and professionally active groupings in those societies. Dictionaries now define the word intelligentsia as intellectuals who form an artistic, social, scientific, or political vanguard. You, ladies and gentlemen, graduates today, are in the vanguard of South Africa's quest to develop into a prosperous, caring country and a progressive, open society. You have an important role to play in the ongoing process to undo the wrongs and inequalities of our past. Now, being a member of a society's intelligentsia doesn't automatically turn you into a noble person. Let me give you an example. Dr. D.F. Malan and Dr. H.F. Verwoerd. Dr. Verwoerd actually had 2 PhDs. He was a proper intellectual. But he used his intelligence to perfect the system of apartheid. Being in a position of power also doesn't make you a member of the intelligentsia. Take the case of one Donald Trump of the United States of America. Perhaps closer to home, the case of former President Jacob Zuma, who positively mistrusted intellectuals, even those in his own party. The real values of the true intellectual are integrity, honesty, open-mindedness, and most importantly, an unending and unconditional search for the truth. Truth matters. I hope you will soon, those of you who graduate today, will soon be personally prosperous, because financial security gives one a freedom to choose and live a rich and rewarding life without worrying where tonight's meal will come from. But I hope your personal financial stability will not blind you to the fact that most of our fellow citizens still live in poverty, many in extreme poverty. I hope you will realize that this is not government's problem, but it's your problem, it is my problem, it is all our problem. Only someone with a heart of stone can be really happy and fulfilled in life when just around the corner a child is hungry or is not getting a proper education. My generation has failed South Africa. Make sure your generation doesn't do the same. Now, the word intelligentsia may have been coined in Poland, but the concept is not alien to Africa or South Africa. You know, life in these parts of the subcontinent, as was the case in most of the rest of the world, was very rough in the 18th and early 19th centuries. Kings and chiefs had absolute power over their subjects and often used military power to show off their prowess, as men like to do, it seems. Let me tell you the story of this boy who was born not far from here in 1720, who was to challenge this whole system and single-handedly created an intelligentsia in central South Africa. His name was Mohlomi, the son of a Bakwena chief. When he took over the chiefdom from his father as a young man, he started doing things very differently. He disbanded his army immediately and told his men to join the women in the fields to cultivate food and be better husbands and better fathers. Mohlomi's favorite pastime, and remember we're talking about mid-1750s around there, his favorite pastime was to have long philosophical discussions with other wise men of his region. And long after his death, people remembered that he often sat there surrounded by men and women of his time, pondering questions such as, where does the universe begin? And where does it end? Questions that you and I are still asking ourselves. What is the essence of life? He asked the people around him. How is life created? Now, his wisdoms have been carried through the ages. And I spent some time up in the mountains of Lesotho where some of the really old folk live who remember what their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents told them about this man. And he left a legacy of wisdom. He said conscience, rather than pressure from society or norms dictated by others, was man's only guide and monitor of his or her behavior. He talked about human beings' inner guide. If you are kind to others and generous to others, especially to the fortunate and the weak, fate will be your friend, Mohlomi said. Now, he lived at the same time as the famous Western philosophers Montesquieu, Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Immanuel Kant. So after researching Mohlomi's life for years now, I can easily imagine the four of them sitting around a table, arguing about Voltaire's statement that if God didn't exist, man would have to invent him, or Rousseau's statement that man was born free, but everywhere he was in chains. And I have no doubt, from what I know, what I've learned, that Motlomi would have been there and held his own and possibly even dominated the conversation. His sayings have become part of Basotho morality, even though young people don't even know about him. Ask the old people what he used to say, and some of the things that they told me he said was, "It is better to thrash the corn than to shape the spear." He was a very peaceful man. He said, "Peace was my sister." A sister being a person at that stage who was in a fragile position in society and needed looking after, protected and nurtured. It was this very same philosopher who started a custom, still alive today if you travel into the mountains of Lesotho, who, if you meet a stranger, you raise your hand and you say, "Khotso," peace. He started that, it's still alive today. But possibly his most famous saying of all, and I believe, and many historians in Lesotho and around these parts agree with me, that it was his call to democracy, was he said this: "A chief is a chief by the grace of his people." It is also the title of a book I wrote about him. Motlomi was always curious for more information, and he traveled long distances across southern Africa. He was in Mozambique, he was in southern Zimbabwe, he was in Botswana, he was in Namibia. He was all over the place, walking with a walking stick and a calabash full of water, all on his own. And he was a chief. And he learned about cultures and practices of different tribes and groups, and he ended up speaking many of their languages. And when in his later years he returned to his kraal near Doctoral, he started a leadership academy where he taught promising young men and aspirant chiefs. And one of his chiefs, one of his students, one of his most promising students was a young man who we now know as Moshoeshoe. He became the founding father of the Basotho nation and one of the greatest African leaders of all time, a leader who stabilized central South Africa during the great turmoil of the early to mid-1800s. Unlike his peers of the time who measured their masculinity according to the violence their armies could inflict, Moshoeshoe never once made war, but he was also never defeated when he was attacked. If you make a proper and modern analysis of Moshoeshoe's life as a chief and a king, it reveals a remarkable and complex statesman with an unusual philosophy of leadership and a surprising grasp of the realities and challenges facing him and his people during the mid-1800s. A vision really equal to that of Nelson Mandela more than a century later. Nelson Mandela was released, and 2 weeks later he phoned me and I went to his home in Soweto. This is early March 1990. And we talked about Moshoeshoe. And he said, "I'm walking in his footsteps. He was the master. I learned from the master." It's something that not many people know. Because Moshoeshoe was a nation builder, a diplomat, a strategist, and a pragmatist, at least on a par with the best leaders in Europe and Asia and North America at the time. In all of his actions, the philosophies of Motlomi could be seen. Moshoeshoe and Motlomi used their minds, their intellect, to change society, not guns or armies or intimidation. They were brave enough to buck the trend of their time. They were principled, yet always open to new ideas. They were strong leaders, but they never lost touch with their people. As a member, ladies and gentlemen, of our society's intelligentsia, view Motlomi and Moshoeshoe as your role models. I wish you all the very best in your future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. de Pre, for an inspiring presentation, I will certainly take away from this that truth matters, and based on Professor Francis Peterson's welcoming that integrity matters, and the examples that you've given us of the fact that being a decent human being matters will stay with me. So thank you very much. A Change Is Gonna Come is a song by the American R&B singer Sam Cooke. The song, released in 1964, pertains to the civil rights movement and is widely considered by various publications as Cooke's best composition, having been voted among the best songs ever released. To perform A Change Is Gonna Come, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tyron Willard, Angela Moki, and Lehlolo Nolo Rantu to the stage this morning.
Now I think I'm able to carry on.
It's been a long time coming, and I know change gon' come.
Thank you very much to the three gentlemen. I now call upon the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences, Professor Philippe Burger, to present the master's candidates in his faculty. He will be followed by the respective deans in the subsequent faculties.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer master's degrees to the candidates that I introduced to you. You may. Master of Accounting, Van Zyl H.A. Master of Administration, Makiti M.A. Master of Business Administration, Adams C.M. Anfield V. Bester G.F. Kutsia V. Kona Blow E.C. Dupree J.L. Hatta D.F. Kakora B. Kesonk M.C.A. Leroux M.D.C. Leroux M. Makorole T.L. Matla T.T. May L.L. Mofolo M. Mohuang M.J. Ramolobeli T.T. Roberts D.G. Skippers A.F. Tau Manta M.M.V. Verkuil H. Master of Commerce with specialization in advanced business, Van Rijn S.G. Master of Commerce with specialization in applied econometrics, Rachivanda T.M. Master of Commerce with specialization in business management, Mia N.W. Ntlatlapa M.J. Master of Commerce with specialization in economics, Kambonde P. Master of Commerce with specialization in financial economics and investment management, Mswela Z.B. Master of Development Studies, Gopane K.J. Class D.N. Kontsiwe N.P. Machete N.J. Mareverwa HF. Machibela DC. Mazinga MK. Mtetwa RP. Mutana N and a degree with distinction. Parkis RG. Sehahabane PB. Shikweda OD. Sibelekwana V. Silangwe B. Skefu NL. Titus X. Master of Public Administration. Barnard O.H. Manas D.K.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer master's degrees to the candidates that I introduced to you. Master of Arts in Higher Education Studies. Madiba A.M. Master of Education with specialization in Curriculum Studies. Lepoto M.L. Thank you. Oguoma E.C. Master of Education with specialization in Education Management. Van Eden Melanie and the degree with distinction. Master of Education with specialization in Psychology of Education. Mate S.M. and the degree with distinction. Morena M.C. Wright L.J. and the degree with distinction. Yes, the Dean's Medal. The Dean's Medal. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to present the Dean's Medal to the recipient that I introduce to you. Wright L.J. Having obtained a Master of Education with specialization in Psychology of Education, she is a student who achieved the best overall result in respect of master's degree in the Faculty of Education. Mr. Chancellor, I present Leslie Jean Wright.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer master degrees in the Faculty of Health Sciences to the candidates that I introduced to you. Master of Arts in Human Movement Sciences with specialization in biokinetics. Loubser NP. Mpeku KM. Shaw ML. Master of Medical Sciences with specialization in human genetics. Maketa MF. Master of Medical Sciences with specialization in human molecular biology. Kloppers JF and a degree with distinction in graad met lof. Master of Medicine and Family Medicine. Carringcross JP. Makola EM. Master of Medicine in Internal Medicine. Carter RMN. Glover E. Ditedu T.I. Pitsu L. Poshwa N.T. Master of Medicine in Medical Genetics. Conradi M. and a degree with distinction in graad met lof. Master of Medicine in Medical Virology. Wada S. Master of Medicine in Neurosurgery. Van Niekerk F. Master of Medicine in Obstetrics and Gynecology. Spannenberg JP. Okay. Master of Medicine in Pediatrics. Tron N. De Kok M. Master of Medicine in Surgery. Wu C. Master of Medicine in Urology. Mthlomi GK. Meiberg JJ. Master of Occupational Therapy. Potgieter C. Master of Optometry. Mukoa MB. Master of Sciences in Dietetics. Fouchier MS. Kloppers A. Symington C. Master of Sciences in Physiotherapy. Mare C. Mokke R. Master of Social Sciences in Nursing. Mashieni Moseneki AM. Mosia DKJ. Mosia SJ. Talbot LJ.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer master's degrees to the candidates that I introduced to you. Master of Arts, Campbell CL. Master of Arts in Africa Studies, Njanji Matetakufa S. Master of Arts in Clinical Psychology, Dinale TN. Master of Arts in Fine Arts, beside note M and the degree with distinction. Kleinans M and the degree with distinction. Master of Arts in Gender Studies, Sentle SMK. Master of Arts in Governance and Political Transformation, Kwenane N.A. Makai J. Maropo O.J. Vezi N.C. Master of Arts in Human Movement Science, Dupisani L.G. and the degree with distinction. Master of Arts in Language Practice, Duplessis N. Master of Arts with specialization in Afrikaans and Dutch, Fitzpatrick M. and the degree with distinction. Jordan E.W. Mare M.M. Nell J. Master of Arts with specialization in classical languages. Beside note, W.M. Master of Arts with specialization in Hebrew. Pitcher, SL, and the degree with distinction. Master of Arts with specialization in History. Van Rensburg, R. Master of Arts with specialization in Political Science. Your card. Matlala, PM. Master of Governance and Political Transformation. Benyane, M.E. Bungane, L.L. Donan, T.F. Mariti, L.N. Mgolozeli, M.A. Mkwanazi, I.S. Master of Music. De Bruin, GP, and the degree with distinction. Master of Social Science with specialization in Industrial Psychology. Sekonyela, L.E. Master of Social Science with specialization in Psychology. Bason, M. Nagel, N. Master of Social Science with specialization in Sociology. Peterson, A.J., and the degree with distinction. Sele, S.J., and the degree with distinction. Setai, T.P., and the degree with distinction. Master of Social Work. Mgidi, L.L. Owen, W.C. Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to present the Dean's Medal to the recipient that I introduced to you. Having obtained a Master of Arts with specialization in Hebrew, she is also the student who achieved the best overall results in respect of a master's degree in the Faculty of the Humanities. Mr. Chancellor, I present Sophia Lynn Pitcher.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer master's degrees to the candidates that I will introduce to you. Master of Laws with specialization in criminal and medical law. Renken K.H. Masapu L.C. Viljoen C. Master of Laws with specialization in human rights. Madonsela J.S. Master of Laws with specialization in international economic law. Taua A.T. Master of Laws with specialization in labor law. Els S.M. Master of Laws with specialization in law of business entities. De Bruin C.E. De Bruin C.E. receives the degree with distinction. Makatela M.T. Nkobosiane L.A.M. Master of Laws with specialization in mercantile law. Makaise G. Mogatlane R.V. Master of Laws with specialization in private law. Bloom M. and the degree with distinction. Senekuane R.P. Master of Laws with specialization in procedural law and law of evidence. Brits S.A.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer master's degrees to the candidates that I will introduce to you. Master of Arts in Theology with specialization in Bible Translation Management. Gandu B.K. Master of Divinity, Botha R.C. Labuskaghni C.C. and the degree with distinction. Meyer, J.A.M., and the degree with distinction at the age of 75. Now that was something. Prinsloo, haar hier, and the degree with distinction. Van Wyk, BK, and the degree with distinction. Master of Reconciliation and Social Cohesion, Fredericks, MS. Mahema, M. Van Wyk, Nathalie. Van Zyl, A.J. de Mist. Master of Theology with specialization in church history and polity. Monareng L. Ngezi Bongani. Master of Theology with specialization in practical theology. Kambule M.I. Mohokare S.M. Van Jaarsveld, J.D.K. and the degree with distinction. Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to present the Dean's Medal to the recipient I introduced to you. Having obtained a Master of Divinity, he is also the student who achieved the best overall results in respect of a master's degree in the Faculty of Theology and Religion. Mr. Chancellor, I present Hendrik Jacobus Prinsloo.
Ladies and gentlemen, I now call upon the Acting Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Management Sciences, Professor Philippe Burger, to present the doctoral candidates in the faculty. He will then be followed by the respective deans in the subsequent faculties.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer doctoral degrees to the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Administration.
Sibanda Mudeni Mudzamba. With this thesis, Public Participation in Integrated Development Planning, a case of the Buffalo Metropolitan Municipality, the candidate makes a significant contribution to knowledge on the nature and the extent of public participation power dynamics during the Integrated Development Planning review process. The study reveals the complexities of how individuals and communities navigate forms of power and raises the critical consciousness of municipal residents, communities, and public officials. Promoter, Professor Al Lewis.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Business Administration.
Reddy Tirnavelli, with a thesis Leadership Styles and Strategy Implementation in the Department of Trade and Industry, the candidate makes a contribution to two research domains, namely leadership and strategy. The study advances the importance of different leadership styles required for successful strategy implementation. Promoter, Chris Hendricks.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Public Administration.
Biljon Maeve Inge Madeline. With her thesis, Social Innovation and Service Delivery by Local Government, a Comparative Perspective, the candidate investigates the nature of co-production in social innovation, the extent to which governance systems influence the use of social innovation, and the extent to which citizen participation underpins social innovation in local government service delivery. Inter alia, the study draws comparisons between Belgium and South Africa by using empirical data collected during an Erasmus Mundus exchange tender completed by the candidate. Promoter, Professor Al Lewis.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer doctoral degrees to the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Comparative Education and Education Management.
Matho, L.A., with his thesis, A Sustainable Learning Environment Model in the Foundation Phase Multi-Grade Classroom. The candidate raises awareness of the challenges faced by multi-grade teaching communities and possible solutions available to them. Promoter, Professor M.J. Mahlomaholo, co-promoter, Dr. B.B. Moreng.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Curriculum Studies. Chipato Raviro, with a thesis titled The Perspectives of School-Based Supervisors on their role as mentors during teaching practice in Zimbabwe. The candidate contributes to scholarship on work-integrated learning in teacher education, and specifically the role of school-based mentors during the teaching placement of students in schools. Using cognitive apprenticeship as a lens, the study uncovered 4 major factors that shape school-based mentoring for pre-service teachers, namely, the understanding of mentoring as a hierarchical relationship between mentors and mentees, the mentor's background and experiences in mentoring, the belief that any qualified teacher is necessarily qualified to become a mentor, and lastly, the assumptions on the student teacher's readiness for the world of work. The promoter, Professor L.C. Jita. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in curriculum studies, Chuta Vusumzi Herzog, with his thesis titled District Level Policy and Practice for Supporting Instructional Leadership by School Principals in South Africa. The candidate contributes insights on how districts support instructional leadership by school principals. The findings suggest that district policies are often not well articulated, and that of all practices aimed at supporting school principals on instructional leadership, the framing of school goals and monitoring of learner progress received less attention from district officials. The promoter, Professor L.C. Jita, the co-promoter, Dr. Mweketsi Musia. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in curriculum studies, Letluenyana David Maleho, with his thesis titled Science Teacher Preparation and Assessment of the Opportunities to Learn and Their Effects on Pre-Service Teachers' Competence. The candidate explores connections between curriculum design and delivery on the one hand and student competence on the other. Using the framework of opportunities to learn, the candidate argues that better opportunities to learn prevail when there is a deliberate integration of the various module content, there is consistency between knowledge from university classes and the strategies used by mentor teachers in schools, and when the students are well grounded in their subject specialization courses. The promoter, Professor L.C. Jita. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in curriculum studies.
Maleko Miriam Matsidiso, with her thesis, Universal Design for Learning Strategy to Enhance the Teaching of Word Problems in Multilingual Mathematics Classroom. The candidate makes a contribution to the enhancement of teachers' pedagogical content knowledge and skills in the teaching of word problems, one of the most challenging mathematical components in the multilingual mathematics classroom. She advocates for inclusive practices through different representation, different forms of action, expression, as well as engagement.
Thank you, Dr. Musia. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in curriculum studies.
Ockhuizen, John Abram, with his thesis, Learner-Centered Teaching and Learning Practices in Geography Teaching in Namibian Secondary Schools. The candidate makes a valuable contribution to the terrain of curriculum studies and learner-centered teaching and learning. His recommendations address the urgent need to rejuvenate learner-centered teaching and learning in geography in Namibian secondary schools by means of new perspectives on inquiry and problem-based approaches. Promoter, Professor L.P. Lowe.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in higher education studies.
Apia Martin Coranteng, With his thesis, E-Assessment in the Teaching and Learning of Information Technology at a higher education institution, the candidate provides a validated enabling framework for effective E-Assessment implementation by information technology lecturers at the Computer Training Institute Education Group, grounded in a sound theoretical base and empirical data obtained through a multi-method, qualitative intrinsic case study with limited quantitative enhancement. The framework provides significant guidelines for the relevant faculty or department and may serve as a vantage point for other lecturers and institutions who wish to explore the implementation of e-assessment in the teaching and learning of their respective disciplines. Promoter, Dr. S.P. van Tonder. Burger Yolandi. With her thesis, a curriculum design framework for alternative access programs that supports student success in graphic design, the candidate provides a validated curriculum framework for designing success-focused alternative access programs for prospective graphic design students, grounded in a sound theoretical base and empirical data obtained through a mixed methods research design, including explanatory and embedded survey components. The framework provides significant guidelines for the design of alternative access programs in graphic design. It may serve as a vantage point for other interested parties who wish to design alternative access programs focusing on different disciplines and can be used as a quality assurance tool. Promoter, Dr. S.P. van Tonder. Co-promoter, Dr. J.H. van Schoor.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in higher education studies, Bass Baron Rudolph. With his thesis, a phenomenological reading of the racial knowledge and identities of student leaders engaged in reconciliation, the candidate attempts to reveal an approach to leading change as it emerged in the analysis of the lived experiences of 4 student leaders who participated in reconciliation initiatives following the raids incident of 2008 at the University of the Free State. The findings of the investigation indicate the value of new types of knowledge and alternative identities to leading change on campuses, which result from the transitional life worlds of the born-frees, and explores the theme of change leadership by refining the notions of in-betweenness as an identity framework, of transitionality as a type of knowledge, and of building bridges as a leadership practice. The promoter is Professor Jonathan D. Janssen.
Leonie Catherine Emily Struble, with a study titled Reskilling of In-Service Teachers in Physical Education in South African Schools. The candidate evaluated the status of physical education within the subject life orientation and found serious knowledge and skills deficiencies in teachers and subject advisors, as well as systemic inadequacies. Her contribution focuses on realistic and creative strategies for in-service teachers to overcome these challenges in South African schools, as well as at universities where student teachers in physical education are trained. Promoter, Professor Johnny Hay. Co-promoter, Professor Johan Bloemhoff.
Thank you, Professor Hay. Doctor of Philosophy in Higher Education Studies and Occupational Therapy.
Van Jaarsveld Annemarie. With this interdisciplinary thesis, Educational Design Research, designing a professional master's curriculum for sensory integration training within the South African context, the candidate makes a contribution to sensory integration, a subfield of occupational therapy, and to higher education studies. The purpose of this study was to design a curriculum towards a professional occupational therapy master's degree in sensory integration for the training of professionals who would be able to diagnose and apply sensory integration interventions while also adding to the extant body of knowledge in the field. Promoter, Dr. Nalies Skeppers. Co-promoter, Prof. Santi van Vuren.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in philosophy and policy studies in education.
Larry Desiree Paul, with the thesis, Cultural Capital of Learners in Disadvantaged Communities towards Improved Learner Achievement, the candidate contributes to an understanding of how school practices in historically disadvantaged colored rural communities could mediate and integrate the life-world knowledge of learners and the cultural capital embodied in schools towards learner achievement. The findings of the study highlight assets and hidden resources as possibilities for school practices to acknowledge all kinds of knowledge, including that of marginalized learners. Promoter, Dr. Audrey Leroux. Co-promoter, Dr. Lynette Jacobs.
For the Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Psychology of Education.
Swanepoel Eben Haeser. With his thesis, a first and second order cybernetic analysis of barriers facing sexuality education in secondary schools, the candidate contributes to the field of sexuality education from a systemic perspective based on cybernetics and grounded theory. With this contribution, he attempts to gain perspective on the dominant components that inform sexuality education, and found that place, space, and culture are core mediators of how sexuality education manifests, while silence is a prominent negative feedback process within sexuality teachings. Promoter, Dr. Christa Beyers.
Swiggers Marlene. In her thesis, A Narrative Journey with Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder, the effect of structured drama intervention on functionality in education, the candidate explored autism, drama techniques, and disability, drawing on prior international research. The intervention empowered the children to develop several skills and integrate these into their behavior to demonstrate more appropriate functional behavior. Promoter, Dr. S. Breinhardt. Co-promoters, Professor R. van Staden and Professor Nico Lewis.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer doctoral degrees in the Faculty of Health Sciences to the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Philosophy in Health Professions Education.
Forshia Lemaine, with a thesis, a curriculum for clinic forensic medicine in the undergraduate medical program, University of the Free State, the candidate conducted an in-depth study with a view to designing and developing content and a curriculum for clinical forensic medicine training in the MBCHB program of the School of Medicine based on the experience and opinions of community service doctors. The promoter, Dr. J. Besaidnout, and the co-promoter, Dr. C. Liebenberg.
Kagawa Mike Nantamu, with his thesis, The Workplace as a Teaching and Learning Environment for Undergraduate Medical Education in Uganda. The candidate makes a contribution by providing recommendations that would improve clinical workplace teaching and learning for medical education in general. Promoter, Dr. M.P. Jama, co-promoters, Prof. W.J. Steinbeck and Prof. S. Kiguli.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in medical physics, ophthalmology and community health.
Rose Andre Stanford, with his thesis, Radiation-Induced Lens Changes and Development of a Radiation Safety Framework for Interventionalists, the candidate makes a contribution to the field of radiation protection amongst interventional radiologists and cardiologists in South Africa by attempting to understand, quantify, and ultimately mitigate the ophthalmological risks associated with the practice of interventional radiology and cardiology in South Africa. The quantitative and qualitative results of this investigation, presented at 9 congresses and 4 published articles, serves as an indication of the value of using multi-method interdisciplinary approaches when seeking solutions to complex interdisciplinary challenges amongst busy professional groups. Promoter, Professor W.I.D. Ray.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in urology.
Doctor of Philosophy with a specialization in Urology, Claassen Frederik Martinez. With his thesis, The Management of Anterior Inflammatory Urethral Strictures, the candidate makes a contribution to the management of inflammatory urethral strictures and the surgical management of urethral strictures. He presents a novel treatment algorithm for the management of inflammatory urethral strictures, addressing a debilitating condition in South Africa and the developing world. Promoter, Professor Francis Smith, co-promoter, Professor SBA Mutambirwa.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer doctoral degrees to the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Africa Studies.
Monene Haydn, with his thesis, A History of Rokana Corporation and its Nkana Mine Division, 1928 to 1991, the candidate makes a major contribution to the historiography of the Zambian copper mining industry's political economy. Dr. Monene produced a pioneer study on the corporate profitability of a major mine, tracing its trajectory under different political regimes and a frequently fraught regional and international climate. Promoter, Ian Phimister, co-promoters, Danelle Van Sale Herman and Duncan Money.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in English.
Higo Tiffany Courtney, with her thesis, A Critical Evaluation of the Outcomes of Using Stream of Consciousness Journal Writing and Reflective Practice in the Grade 8 Drama Classroom at the National School of the Arts, the candidate investigates learners' reactions to participation in stream of consciousness journal writing. The research is premised on the proposition that the flexibility afforded by journal writing can supplement existing methods of language learning, and its findings suggest that the pedagogic potential of journaling is enhanced when coupled with opportunities for guided reflection on learners' growth as writers. Promoter, Dr. M.S. Conradi. Co-promoter, Dr. S.I. Brokenshaw.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in governance and political transformation.
Biseko Mukhale Daniel, with this thesis, the structure, the status and role of provincial governance in the South African Constitutional Dispensation 1996 to 2012, the candidate reviews the provincial constitutional amendment as it entails rearranging the political legislative framework and systems of government, which assigns powers and functions to the provinces. With this study, he contributes to the establishment of a governance framework to address and strengthen provincial governance in South Africa. Promoter, Dr. Tia Kutsia.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Hebrew.
Wilson Daniel Joseph. With his thesis, Copular and Existential Sentences in Biblical Hebrew, the candidate contributes to the field of Hebrew linguistics by using the modern linguistic frameworks of minimalism and distributed morphology to specify the precise environments in which the biblical Hebrew copula occurs. He demonstrates that the licensing requirements of the tense aspect mood system of biblical Hebrew explain many occurrences of the copula, and that the copula is used with the defective subject agreement in clause initial position to indicate a thetic judgment, thus assisting students and translators of biblical Hebrew in understanding the precise nuances of nonverbal predication in biblical Hebrew. Promoter, Professor C.L. Miller Nodia. Co-promoter, Professor J.A. Nodia.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in history.
Kompi Buti Hosea, with his thesis, The Evolution of Traditional Leadership in South Africa, 1996 to 2012, Traditionalism versus Modernism. The candidate makes a contribution to the historicization of the institution of traditional leadership. In this contribution, he analyzes contrasting debates and ideological underpinnings emanating from the interface of traditionalism and modernism within a contemporary South African historiography. Promoter, Dr. Chicha Twala.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in human movement science.
Coetzee Brenda Audrey, with her thesis, Self-Reported Fitness Levels, Actual Fitness Levels, and Recorded Energy Expenditure on Grading Hiking Trails. The candidate developed a statistical model that predicts the average heart rate and maximum heart rate of persons undertaking an easy and moderate hike. The results of such predictions can be used to recommend hiking trails to hikers with varying fitness levels for safety's sake. Promoter, Professor Johan Bloemhoff. Co-promoter, Professor Derek Coetzee.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Human Movement Science.
Christine Wall, with a thesis, Integrated Guidelines for Return to Play After Musculoskeletal Injury in Rugby Union, the promovenda developed a return-to-play decision-making process for injured rugby union players using the E-Delphi methodology. A 3-step integrated guideline for return-to-play decision-making was established. One of the examiners of the thesis envisaged that SA Rugby will implement these guidelines in their Box Smart program.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in Language Practice.
Awung Felix Nkwata, with his thesis representing Africa through translation, Ferdinand Oyono's Un Wie de Boy and Le Vieux Negre et la Medaille in English, the candidate makes a significant contribution to the field of translation studies in Africa by linking, in a creative way, Bourdieu's notion of habitus to a microtextual analysis to consider linguistic choices in translation against the background of social causal factors, an achievement for which he received ample praise from the international assessor. The candidate is commended for the clear methodology with which he links sociological concepts to his analysis by means of semi-structured interviews via email with the translator and the publisher in an effort better to understand the habitus in both cases. He has been advised to publish this thesis either as articles or as a monograph. Promoter, Kobus Maree. Co-promoter, Professor Paul Bandia. Sijadu Zameka Paula, with a thesis, Argumentative Discourse in the isiXhosa novel, Inkumbu Yeminyanya, and its English translation, Wrath of the Ancestors, an appraisal theoretical perspective. The candidate makes a significant contribution to the field of translation studies, to African traditional political argumentative discourse, and in particular, to isiXhosa literary and translation studies. By combining two conceptual approaches, namely argumentation theory and appraisal theory, the candidate demonstrated unique features of the pragmatics of traditional argumentative discourse in African context, for which she was commended by the assessors. Her findings challenged some of the generalized claims of argumentation theory, and she further demonstrated how the translation itself represents an appraisal of African literature, as the author-translator deleted particular parts of the novel in the translation. Promoter Kobus Maree, co-promoter Professor Mariana Visser.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in philosophy.
Rutman Sharon, in her thesis, Ideology, Discourse and Identity in Post-Apartheid South Africa, a case study of first-year NMU students. The candidate considers an encounter between students in a first-year English language studies course at the Nelson Mandela University, which creates a space in which the narrative of difference is addressed. A critical mediation of ideological constructs and discourses which dictate perceptions of identity on the students' part is a highly original approach to a persistent social problem and holds great potential for transformation at university level and more broadly in the South African society. Promoter, Professor Bert Olivier.
Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in sociology.
Heggenstaller Alessandra Kim. With her thesis, The Role of Cosmetic Surgery in the Embodied Experience of Female Beauty, Alessandra Heggenstaller makes a contribution to national and international feminist literature and debates by exploring the complex nature of beauty and cosmetic surgery. The study reveals how in the process of cosmetic interventions, participants renegotiate their confidence. They experience a greater sense of congruency in relation to their gendered embodiment, and they discover a real sense of self-empowerment. The promoter, Jan Kutsia, and the co-promoter, Dr. Asta Rao.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer doctoral degrees to the candidates presented to you. I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. The Doctor of Laws with specialization in constitutional law and philosophy of law.
Deman Annelie, with her thesis, Rights-Based Approaches Towards the Post-2015 Development Goals, a Critical Assessment, the candidate undertakes a post-mortem appraisal of the 2000 Millennium Development Goals, accentuating the failure to adopt a human rights-based approach to development as one of the main reasons why the goals did not realize their objectives. By means of a well-researched analysis, the thesis succeeds in clarifying what the human rights context of the post-2015 Sustainable Development Goals is and how, in practical terms, this program will benefit from a human rights orientation. Promoter, Professor J.L. Pretorius, co-promoter, Professor A. Keet.
Mr. Chancellor, I have the privilege to request you to confer doctoral degrees to the candidates presented to you, and I request the promoters to introduce their candidates to you. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in New Testament.
James Adams, with his thesis, The Spirit in Hebrews, a Theological Reading,
The candidate contributes to the study of the Holy Spirit in the New Testament book of Hebrews. The thesis argues that Hebrews offers a spirit Christology that is utilized by the author as a hermeneutical filter through which the high Christology of Hebrews might be understood. Promoter, Hermie van Zyl. Doctor of Philosophy with specialization in practical theology.
Van Rensburg Johan, with his thesis, die roeping en rol van gemeentes van die AGS van Suid-Afrika in die gemeenskap, the candidate contributes towards an understanding of the implementation of a strategic plan in the Apostolic Faith Mission and focuses on the importance of analyzing the culture and identity of local AFM congregations. The candidate presents a diagnostic model supported by empirical research which can assist congregations in determining their identities and cultures. Promoter Kobus Kumon.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of yet another inspiring graduation ceremony, and it's gone rather quickly, I must say. I suppose it's because I was enjoying myself as much as I was. All I have to do now is to say a few thank yous and a brief message to our graduates from today. And firstly, to the Vice-chancellor and the team for a new revised format for the postgraduate graduations. I was looking forward to experiencing it, and I kind of enjoyed it. And that, of course, includes all the deans and everybody else, registrars involved in rethinking the graduation format. I think one thing that I've appreciated over the last 6-7 years is the continuous innovations that are brought into these processes to make them better and better and better. I'm looking forward to the Vice-chancellor's new innovations to deal with the graduations at the Kwakwa campus. Because there's a particular set of challenges at the Kwakwa campus, and unless I'm convinced of those innovations, I've threatened never to go back again to that particular graduation. So convince me, Mr. Vice-chancellor, that there's sufficient innovation that will make them enjoyable, joyous, dignified, and respectable. I think they were overly joyous and at the expense of dignity and respectability. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also take this opportunity to the performers who performed for us, Tyrone Willard, Angelo Moki, and Lehlohonolo Ranto, for the wonderful rendition of that Sam Cooke song. I grew up on rhythm and blues and soul music, so I could relate not just to the song itself, but to the movements as well. Those my age and older would recall that soul music and rhythm and blues was always accompanied and associated with very stylistic movements. And they were not too bad in terms of their stylistic movements, but in their absence, let's give them a round of applause. Before I come to our guest speaker, let me address myself to the graduates, and as the Vice-chancellor and Professor Corley indicated, with these postgraduate graduations, I mean, the role of the promoters are particularly significant, and that's what this whole enterprise is about, by the way. And so to the promoters, you have to feel particularly proud of having guided the development of the process, both master's and doctoral levels, to the point where they walked across the stage. And I want to say, let's give a round of applause to the promoters. There is one particular promoter who I'm sure feels particularly chuffed, and he's kind of rubbed my nose into something. Last year, after Professor Jita was promoted to the position of the dean, he did not graduate a single PhD student. And I said to Professor Jita that where is he? Yeah. That I hope this deanship thing has not gone too much to his head, that he doesn't think he's an academic anymore. And he told me that he'll show me a thing or two. And Professor Jita, I am aware that 3 of the graduating PhD students were promoted by your good self, and I think a special round of applause for Professor Jita is deserved. The other one, whose name I will not mention, who has promised me that he'll rub my nose in it this afternoon, is the one who will be coming in the afternoon. And I'm sure you all know who that one is. But to the graduates, let me start with the master's graduates first. Fantastic, wonderful, congratulations to you all. But as the Vice-chancellor indicated, incredible hard work that went into ultimately graduating with a master's degree. Lots of sacrifices that go into that. Many of you, I could tell by virtue of the levels of stresses on your faces, that you already have families, you already have jobs, and for you to have found the time to do it and complete it is something that is truly commendable. And ladies and gentlemen, let's say to all those who got their master's degrees today, a collective round of applause to all of them. But I'm going to ask those of you who got their degrees with distinctions to please rise. Special words of congratulations to you all for the distinction that accompanied your incredible hard work. It is not easy. It is something very special and something to be particularly celebrated. I was particularly chuffed that, bright and brilliant as you all are, some of you also have an incredible fashion sense. I saw a pair of shoes today that if I was a lady, I would definitely go look for that pair of shoes and wear them. Absolutely fantastic. As they remain standing, and this I've been doing for the last 4 or 5 years now, I'm asking you to look at the gender composition of them as they're standing. What has been happening over the last few years has been a very discernible shift from white males getting all the distinctions to almost literally 70–80% and across faculties, ladies and gentlemen. This is not in those stereotypically feminine as it was said when I grew up, that you find the boys in natural sciences and agriculture and engineering, and you find the girls in social science and humanities. I'm talking across the board, regardless of faculty, regardless of disciplines. I've been watching this incredible shift in the demographics of who gets their degrees with distinctions becoming distinctly female. And in some instances, we've had graduations where it was close to 100% female, compared to what would have been 70, 80, 90% male when I first arrived here 6, 7 years ago. And I'm saying to the females of the species, absolutely fantastic. The world has got to be a better place because you guys have arrived. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Thank you. And to our doctoral candidates, I was saying to the chairman of council this morning over breakfast that when I got both the master's and the PhD at University of California, I didn't deem it worthy to go through the ceremony because I was just too far out there and I was the only one. I didn't have my parents and friends with me, and I just kind of thought that I might end up feeling sad for being there alone. But over time, I've kind of lived to regret that because I've denied myself the right and the privilege to experience what we experience today. And I join you in feeling extremely proud for having achieved what you've achieved. It is a very special achievement to ultimately have bestowed upon you a doctoral degree. So ladies and gentlemen, let's collectively acknowledge the incredible achievements of those who got their doctoral degrees today. But to all of you, both master's and doctoral graduates today, you are not the only ones who sacrificed and made, who contributed to the successes that we're celebrating today. Some of them are sitting in front of you. Some of them were your promoters, people who equally contributed to your successes. I now want you, using those who are in the room as proxies, to all those teachers who taught you, from the time your educational journey started, depending on your age in substandard A or grade 1 to now, if you can please rise and acknowledge all those people who contributed to your educational journey, including those seated in front of you here today. As you remain standing up in the bleachers and behind you, there are people who made as much sacrifice, in some instances, even more sacrifices than you made. There would be your parents, your mothers, fathers, uncles and aunts, former teachers, neighbors, pastors in church, friends and cousins and everybody else. Now is the time for you to make as much noise as you can to say thank you to all of them. Thank you very much. Please be seated. I'll now come to our guest speaker today, Dr. Max du Preez. Max, I think I've been told before, Professor Peterson and the registrars, that when graduation speaker speeches are written, they're actually posted on the university website. I think I've been told that before. And this is one that I honestly believe should be posted on the university website for as long as possible, because I'm told they get posted and removed because there's just so many of them. It was an incredible and amazingly inspiring, facilitated recollection by all of us to say, yes, the world has had the Voltaires and the Socrateses and the Nietzsches and the Kants of this world. And there is a tendency for, and I don't know as a person who's not a historian, as to whether it is a native thing in Africans to tend to look to Europe for thought leadership. And what you shared with us, which for me was incredibly inspiring. Very simple story of those two Basotho giants, Mutlomi and Moshoeshoe. A friend of mine who's a theologian kind of traversed the journey that is similar to the one that you traversed. Shares a story of after Mutlomi determines that Moshoeshoe is wise enough to succeed him. One night he takes him up the mountain and he says to him, bring the food and blankets because we're going to overnight up there. And he doesn't say anything to the young man. Doesn't say anything at all night, and the young man is confused. Why did he bring me up here? And it became evident the next morning, because Mutlomi was a polygamist, like chiefs would be at the time. He had a number of households. And in the morning, he said to the young man, just watch and see what's going to happen. See who's going to come out of which hut. And those were the huts occupied by some of the women that were his wives. And the young man sees Dr. Khotso Mukhele comes out of one, Professor Peterson comes out of another one. And he says to the young man, that's where my political power lies. Therein lies my political power. Because they all know that I know what they do at night. That's the wisdom of the man. But your message, I think, for me, is an incredible message to the people sitting in front of us today. I came back from a meeting in a town called Baden, just south of Vienna. I came back from there yesterday. And over lunch on Tuesday, I was seated next to a gentleman from Malaysia. And I asked him, why have the Malaysians re-elected Mahathir Mohamad? And we know Mahathir Mohamad as the leader who created modern Malaysia and modernized that nation and made it the powerful nation that it is today. And Malaysia went through corrupt regimes the same way that the post-Mandela South African regimes became corrupt. But the people of Malaysia had the vision and the wisdom to decide that we thought he had laid a platform and a foundation for a future. But we were watching, whilst he's still alive, that future that he thought he had promised us being squandered by those who succeeded him. Therefore, we want him back. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury of wanting Madiba back. Because he walked away from it after 5 years because he wanted some normalcy in his life, and we all understood that. But he's also passed on. And the question is, what then do we do? The Malaysians could go back and bring Mahathir Mohamad back. We can't bring Madiba back. What then do we do? Do we do what happened in December 2017 after Cyril Ramaphosa was elected president of the ANC and say, oh, thanks goodness, Cyril is coming to solve our problems for us. At least he's not corrupt, at least he's not dead. Yes, he did buy a Buffalo Bull for 10 million rands, but... Or do we do what the Malaysians did, but slightly differently? Do we say it never was about Mahathir Mohamad to begin with? It was about all of us. It never was about Nelson Mandela to begin with, but it was about all of us. They just made it easy for us to think it was about them. They will do it all for us. And we surrendered ourselves to them. I drove into this campus this morning, and as I enter the road that leads directly to the gate, on my right-hand side, there's about maybe 20, 25 garbage bags that have just been dumped there, just on the side of the road. Somebody just stopped their truck and dumped garbage bags on the side of the road, right in front of this university. There's no Cyril Ramaphosa who's going to stop that person dumping that garbage there. It is those people who drove past as the garbage was being dumped. Minister Motsoaledi is not going to give you the National Health Insurance Scheme. He has half a clue of what needs to be happened to put together a National Health Insurance Scheme. He's hostile to the private sector provision of medicine in this country. And the question is, and with the health science faculties here, I read yesterday on News 24 that almost 500 anesthesiologists are threatening to leave the country. Leave the country and go where? Leave the country to whom? Are you so timid and unconvinced that you can make a difference that you think your only option is to leave the country? Trump doesn't want you. The Australians really don't want you. Despite them saying it's open to white South Africa, come to Canada, come to those nations have their own issues. Packing our bags as anesthesiologists and cardiologists, let's confront Aaron Motsoaledi. Let's use the tradition of this country of strong civil society to say we claim it back. Not leave and go to Canada and Australia and New Zealand. And it's not going to be done by Cyril Ramaphosa. I think that comes out of the message. It's going to come out of all of us. I know we say these things and, after this you'll be taking photographs outside. You won't even remember what Max Dupree said and what I said. But ladies and gentlemen, we keep on not remembering and it will keep on deteriorating. And it's all up to each and every one of us to stop the rot. Cyril is a political survival person. Cyril is going to do what will take for Cyril to remain president for 10 years. If you're lucky, you are part of that project. But Cyril's project is about Cyril. It's not about you. Your project should be about you, and part of that project should be to say, this is my country. And that's what Max Dupree kind of says to me today. And the wisdom of Mhlomi and the wisdom of Moshoeshoe creates an incredible backdrop for us as we contemplate how are we going to claim our country and all decide that we will put our shoulders to the wheel to make it what we want it to be. Let's all take that message, ladies and gentlemen, and make it happen. But congratulations to you all, and go party tonight. You deserve it, and be good alumni of this university. That brings us to conclude the proceedings, but even before I do that, I want to acknowledge the presence of the Chairperson of Council. Willem, it always amazes me how you avail yourself for activities on this campus, even just to come in and be present in them. And Peter Dutoy as well, from the alumni, your constant presence is something that we really acknowledge and appreciate. This concludes the proceedings for this morning. The university takes pleasure in inviting you for refreshments in the H. van der Merwe School's Hall, which is to the west of this venue. Yanni Marais, accompanied by the Graduation Instrumental Ensemble under the direction of Anton Esterhuizen, will shortly lead us in the singing of the national anthem. After that, you are requested to remain standing while the congregation is dissolved and the main and academic processions leave the hall. May you please rise. By virtue of the power vested in me as Chancellor, I hereby dissolve this congregation of the University of the Free State.